So
Yeah.
what was your next thing?
So I had final thoughts about section 1, which is to say why the Earth isn't round, and then I have a positive why the Earth isn't flat, and then I have a positive case for why the Earth is round. So I broke it up into two halves. So here's my final thoughts on why the Earth isn't flat.
I can bounce back on final thoughts. I can go back with your spin thing.
Go back
The
with the
centrifugal
spin
force
thing.
deal.
Oh,
He's
okay.
spinning. He's spinning.
Well, let me finish my closing statement and then do your centrifugal force thing.
Oh, yeah, for
and then
sure.
we can go back and forth. So, final thoughts. Largest problem is that I can see the largest problem that I can see with the flat Earth model we just talked about. There is no model. The problem with the flat Earth model is there is no model. There's like 15 dozen models, and they can't agree on anything.
Sure.
The dome seems to be necessary, but there seems to be some debate about what the dome is made of, and nobody can determine if the sun and the moon are over the dome or under the dome. Furthermore, there doesn't seem to me to be any scale with the models. Like, we don't know how big the flat Earth is. We don't know how long the perimeter of the ice wall is supposed to be. Like, there's no, like, I'm not even sure what Antarctica is. Is Antarctica the ice wall? Does it exist at all? I have no clue because these models can't agree about what it is. And so, yeah, you've got that issue. They can't explain the night cycles in northern and southern poles. We had that big debate about the coffee cup caustic?
Yep.
And that's the big issue. So my next problem is that there is no definitive story that it shows how the world at large came to decide that we needed to use a round Earth model to demoralize the public. This brings me back to my parallels of evolution. When I am refuting evolution or arguing about neo-Darwinism, I can give you historical context and give you an approximate story, maybe not 100% right, maybe I've got details wrong, but I can give you an approximate story that shows the characters and the people involved who pushed the theory, and I can tell you how the theory became popular. I can tell you what went wrong. There's nothing like that with the round Earth model. If the flat Earth is true and the round Earth is some kind of agreed upon lie, how did that lie get propagated? How did people come to agree to tell that lie? You have to bear something in mind. And this is going to start out as a fallacy of consensus, or a consensus fallacy, but my point's a little more nuanced than this. You have got businesses, governments, entire industries, citizens, millions of people all claiming the Earth is round. Now, that's the consensus fallacy, but the thing you have to bear in mind is these people have counter interests. There are 9 countries that claim that they've been to the moon. There are countless businesses and industries that say they've seen the curvature of the Earth from the upper atmosphere. And these people hate each other. Russia and the United States hate each other. There's no reason for them to want a round Earth over a flat Earth. It doesn't make any sense. These people, they have every reason to argue with each other, and yet they're in agreement on this point. And there would be a financial incentive. Can you imagine if, let's say, Pakistan was like, them dad blame Westerners have been lying about the Earth being round this whole time. It's flat. Get on our rocket and we'll show you. If the Earth was actually flat, they would have every reason to demonstrate that to people to countervail the lying, dirty West. So you've got people that really have every reason to mess each other over, all in agreement on this point. You've got people with countervailing interests, private space agencies and government space agencies, all both saying that the Earth is round. Now, wouldn't the private agency be able to financially profit from saying that dad blame government's lying, the Earth is flat, it ain't round, get in my rocket and I'll show you? Why don't they do that? So you've got
the Pakistanis?
Hmm?
The Pakistanis specifically?
No, I'm
Because
just
they're
saying
being
this is
genocided
just
by
people
Israel.
in general. If you've got people with countervailing motives, like that hate each other, why would they all get into agreement over a lie if they don't even like each other on everything else?
Because it makes money. Lies make
But
money.
the flat Earth would make money. That's my point. If somebody were
wouldn't,
to
'cause it's the
challenge the
truth.
consensus and show photographic proof, It would make money.
No, it wouldn't.
What? How? In what universe would? If somebody came up to me and was like, "I can prove that the Earth is flat. Get in my rocket ship and I'll show you," I'd be like, "Sign me up and take my money. I want to see this." And a lot of people are like that. I don't think I'm alone. I think you'd go. I don't even believe in the flat Earth. I'd want to go. There would be a market for people to go see a flat Earth.
Yeah, until people that have more
I don't
money
wanna
than
go.
them.
You don't want to go?
I'm scared of height.
Chicken.
Yeah, I don't think it would make money. I think you'd get shut down.
But, I mean, maybe.
Dude,
but-
NASA makes $80 million a day. That
Mm-hmm.
is a huge amount of money laundering. And you think if somebody
I do
was
think there's a degree
to
of
set
money
up
laundering, yeah.
set up a project to disprove or discredit NASA, you think they're just going to let it happen?
I
All
think-
those interests,
I think
all those
Putin-
people. Listen, all those people making money off that $80 million a day. You think all those people are just going to let that happen?
No, but I think Putin would love to stick his thumb in NASA's eye. I think Putin
I think he
freaking
would
hates
too.
NASA. I
Yeah,
think
I agree.
Pakistan hates NASA.
Because they're being
that
genocided
global
by
cabal
Israel.
of British bankers that run the West, they don't run everything. And China's been up to the moon supposedly. Russia's been up to the moon supposedly. All these countries would love nothing more than to disprove NASA.
I don't think that's true at all.
I disagree. I
it's-
think that they would
I think-
love to do it. I think there'd be more than enough financial incentive to say that there's a flat Earth if there was any way to prove that.
No.
I
Because
thought
the rulers of these countries
They're
are
not all powerful, and there's different
no,
factions.
but they all want their people to be subservient and afraid.
How does the round Earth model push that over the flat Earth model? That's the other thing I don't understand. Like if I sit there, if I tell you why people pushed evolution, I can show you that Darwin himself said this in his writings. He was like, I do not like natural theology and I want to disprove natural theology. Natural theology was Paley's watchmaker argument. If you find a watch on the beach or wherever, you know that the watch didn't get there by itself because it's too complicated. Somebody had to make it. It's the same thing with the planet and the universe. The universe didn't get there by itself. It clearly is too intricate. It's clearly designed. God had to make the universe. Darwin expressly said, I want to disprove Paley. I want to demonstrate that there is an appearance of design, but there isn't really design. He's quoted as saying that. So I can point to you and say, this is why Darwin did what he did. I can tell you that Charles Lyell and that British academia, they had financial incentives to actually push specifically Darwin's version of natural selection over Russell Wallace's. Because Russell Wallace said that natural selection applies to every other creature in the universe except the human mind. Because he had spent 12 years basically island hopping, and he had seen every culture and every level of technology, and he realized in every culture throughout the world there is marriage, there is art, there is dancing. You have the same fundamental components of human behavior regardless of the technology, which means technological development is not correlated with adaptation or evolution, meaning that the mind is independent of natural selection. It had to have another source. And that was his addendum to the natural selection theory. Charles Lyell and that British establishment didn't want that because that left the room open for natural theology, number one. Number two, I think everybody kind of understood slavery was out the window with the South. Now, this is more my opinion. I don't know if I could actually prove this if I dug around, but this is what I believe. They all felt that slavery was heading out the door. Remember, Origin of Species was published in 1859. There had been a lot of tariffs and wars going back and forth with slavery throughout the 1850s. And I think the British government, you also have to bear in mind, the British they were getting their wool and stuff from the South at that time. And in fact, Robert E. Lee was convinced that the British were going to go help them. He was actually trying to copy Washington's tactic with the French. He was trying to bleed the North dry by running around until the British could show up and reinforce them. He hoped the British would do for him what the French did for Washington, because the British were directly profiting from the slave trade in the South. Now, somehow John Seward went and stopped all that, and I don't know the details of that. But the point is, even back in the 1850s, they knew slavery was going to go out the window. So where was the British government going to get its crap? They had to find a way to justify basically reinstituting slavery, and that meant imperialism. But in order to justify imperialism... All right, hang on.
All right, I'm back.
All right. But in order to justify imperialism, they had to convince the public that people in primitive tribes in Africa were inferior to them. And if you look at the late 1800s and the early 1900s, you've got all this like basically white supremacist poetry that's talking about the white man helping these poor idiot civilian ignorant villagers evolve. We're gonna evolve these people. We're gonna spread our white race or whatever. That was all part. They wanted to push that, and they needed a theory to justify that because they needed to find a way to replace the slave trade that they were convinced was going to die. And so that may be completely wrong. That's my guess. But the point is, I've got enough pieces of information that I can pull from to make that inference. There is nothing like that with the round earth. Why in the world would anybody conclude that the round earth is going to make people feel sad and afraid? Who concluded it? When did they conclude it? How did this conspiracy to lie to the public start? And what's your evidence to suggest that?
I think it goes pretty far back, honestly. Like Baal, Baal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, pretty much anything that not to shit on a bunch of people, but ball, like football, basketball, the earth is a ball. All these things kind of entertain you. They're for your entertainment, and they're like it's like a world of theater. It's a world of actors, like the Globe Theater. It's a different realm to operate within. Like Hollywood is not the same realm that we operate in. Mm-hmm. It's Baal. It's like the Satan world. Mm-hmm. So I think it goes way far back because, I mean,
okay,
because it makes you feel desolate. Like, oh, I'm spinning through space. I could run into any kind of. I heard somebody say it last night. We could hit anything. We're just in open space. It's terrifying. Going millions of miles an hour. It's ridiculous, dude. It makes you afraid, and you can't just shy away from that.
Then why did Christians believe it as far back as the 1300s? If it's that scary, why did Christians believe it?
I don't know. It's Baal. It's Satan.
How can it be Baal? Like you're having to infer the motives of like the entire Christian church for 400 years.
Oh, why did the Christians push it in the 1300s?
Yes, that's what I said in the beginning.
Because they were paid off. You don't think the church gets paid off?
For 400 years?
Yeah. How long have the Catholics been raping little boys?
Paid off by who, Cody? And who the heck were the Greeks paid off by? So the demon Baal is running around with a paycheck going, here, if you say the earth is round, I'm gonna...
Ding, 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 ding.
There's no way. There's no way. Who would have paid them? The church won. They killed paganism. They were the big dog. Who was going to pay them? And why would the church care what they wanted? Huh?
Satan doesn't need money, bro.
Then how is he writing checks?
He's the master of the realm. You got to think big picture, man.
Yeah, but you have to give me a reason why you think this. I'm saying it doesn't make any sense. Like,
but it does make. Well, you're saying it's not scary.
I don't feel particularly afraid because the Earth is round.
Well, I mean, you can say that, but I mean, a lot of other people say that it's scary to be flying through space.
Well, maybe I'm terrified that the sun is only 3,000 miles away and it's going to whack me in the backside of the head if I ain't paying attention. What if it decides to just drop?
I mean, it could, but God didn't design it that way.
Anything could happen. That's the problem with these ad hoc explanations. Like, I could give you terrifying scenarios. What if the dome comes crashing down?
Then
We're all
I guess that
dead.
would mean God was dead.
I mean, maybe, but that's the problem. It's like I can come up with terrifying scenarios. It doesn't matter if it's a ball. It doesn't matter if it's a disc. It doesn't matter. So what is unique about a round sphere that would make people feel afraid?
Because you're flying through space at 1,000,000 miles an hour or whatever, and spinning at 666,000
why
miles
should
an
people be
hour.
scared of that? There's literally nothing in the way.
I don't know.
Exactly. Different things are going to scare different people. If you've got a
I
flat
feel a
Earth
lot more
model, you can come
comfortable.
up with terrifying scenarios of that. And if you got a round Earth model, you can come up with terrifying scenarios of that. There's
a lot
nothing
more
unique
comfortable
about the
as a
round Earth
created-
that's going to make life more terrifying than a flat Earth.
I feel a lot more comfortable as a created being in God's tent.
I'm still a created being in God's tent. The tent is just a circle
ball.
instead of a
Yeah,
plate.
which ball is not in the word in the Bible, but or sphere or anything like that. But it's fine.
The word, well, it doesn't matter. The word circle's in there, but
Yeah, that's a circle.
That's interchangeable with sphere, though. It's like wine. Wine could mean grape juice or an alcoholic beverage. It's interchangeable.
That's ridiculous, Gary.
They
You
didn't
can't
have
say
grape
circle
juice at all.
doesn't mean circle.
They had a debate like this in Owen Benjamin and Baptist Bias and the Witsit. They had this
It
exact
says he
same
drew
conversation.
a circle. It's a 2D. It's a 2D description. He says he
The
inscribed a
Hebrew
circle
word
on the
is
face. Shut up,
interchangeable.
boy.
They established that in the debate. The
Why are you
word is
interrupting me?
interchangeable. It could mean either one.
No, he says he inscribed a circle on the face of the water. That's not a sphere. That doesn't make sense.
Inscribed a circle on the face of the water.
Have you ever inscribed a sphere?
What script? Let me go back to the Bible verse thing that we just did a little bit ago. Where was that located? That's the first question. What scripture are you quoting, and where was it? Dollar to donuts, it's Psalms, Jobs are one of the major and minor prophets. Dollars to donuts, it's
Yeah, but
poetic language.
you can't interpret those words differently.
Yes,
Wait, say it again.
You can't interpret God as a hen any differently. If you're going to use that methodology, you can't interpret the simile that God is a hen protecting his chicks. You can't treat it like a simile.
It's from Job.
Exactly.
I don't know. I think it's goofy to call a circle a sphere, though.
And I think it is goofy not to admit poetry is poetry. Okay. I'm going to move on and finish my thing because you still got to do your centrifugal force thing.
Okay.
So, here's the last thing that really bothers me is that everyone is lying. I understand being cynical of the government, especially given the last few years. But we're not just talking about a bunch of British academics trying to refute natural theology. We're talking about governments, businesses, civilians, all lying. The tourism industry, lying. The airplane industry, lying. The private and government space industry, lying. Every photograph that has ever been taken, not just from space, but from the upper atmosphere, is a lie. The cell phone and satellite industries are lying. Not just wrong, lying. Because sooner or later, all of these people would come across the evidence that disproves the flat earth theory or confirms it. The mathematicians of the past and present have to be lying. Entire historical figures can't even exist. Everyone has to be lying except for a handful of people unafraid of the truth. As someone who despises neo-Darwinism and is very suspicious of radiometric dating, I can relate to this. But, it's astounding how quickly people will accept an idea just because it's a part of a consensus. But there comes a point where this sort of thinking is just arrogance. The problem with just accepting your own empirical data is that the mentality fails to understand that somebody else's anecdotal evidence is just as valuable as yours. And the truth is, nobody lives by empiricism alone. So here's an example. I can reasonably infer that mom and dad conceived and that was how I was born. Was I there? No. I cannot empirically prove that mom and dad conceived me. It is hypothetically possible that I'm adopted and nobody except them knows about it. It's possible, but without any sort of corresponding evidence, it's a moot point. And I can reasonably infer that because me and my wife conceived Demi, and she looks a little bit like me, that my mom and dad conceived me. That's reasoning. Is it empirical? No. But it's the kind of reasoning everybody does in their day-to-day life. And if you're going to use that kind of reasoning in your day-to-day life, why not use math? Why not use the scientific experiments? Why say everybody is lying except for you guys? And that's something that irritates me. So, empiricism isn't enough. You have to use certain reasoning. You have to use different kinds of reasoning to come to conclusions. So, with all that said, after you're done with the centrifugal force thing, I'll move on to why the Earth is round.
So, that last point, empiricism would be like me saying, oh, well, I'm the special boy, and I think my answer is more righter.
No, empiricism is just limiting your knowledge to your sensory data. Just what you can see, just what you can feel, just what you experience.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I mean, I guess, if you want to word it that way. I was going to be more charitable than that, but yes. And my point is, you still have to make inferences on your observational data. People do that all the time, and people can't help it. So empiricism just isn't enough. And if empiricism isn't enough, why discount math? Why discount the photographs? Why discount, people who say they've been to Antarctica? Why discount all those people?
Who said I was doing that?
You said that you think the photographs are all faked. You said that the blue marble
ones from
thing was
space?
the blue marble picture of Earth is like a bunch of cloud composites. And I'm like,
it is.
Why? Why do you think that?
Because
what makes you think that the photographs are fake other than the fact that you don't believe in the round Earth?
Because I've seen computer analytics of them tearing that thing apart and seeing all the double spots and stuff.
Well, then you need to show me a photo of that, because what I saw was a picture of the Earth and a bunch
Do you
of
want me to
some
do all the
jackwagon
research for you?
did squares. I had a week, and I think I've done plenty of research. Thank you very much. I've done hours of research, and I'm a little screwy in the head because I'm sleep deprived from all the research. But, but the point is, and here's something else about that Witsit guy. This is like a little bit of a tangent. That dude does not know crap about photography, and it makes me mad. Because I eat, sleep, and breathe photography. It's my bread and butter. I video edit. And he was sitting there making this stupid point about how they're not being, you can't see enough of the stars in space or whatever. And the dude clearly doesn't freaking understand how exposure works on photographs. It was insane. So he was saying, basically, and if that's the debate we end up watching, I'll show you this point. But he was saying that basically one of the reasons there wasn't space is because you can't see more of the stars in the photographs. And I was like, you idiot, that's not how light works. The reason we're able to see as much as we are on planet Earth is because you've got the gases, you've got water vapor.
It wasn't space because there wasn't
enough stars. You couldn't see enough stars in the photographs. So therefore, space wasn't real or something.
That's a stupid argument. There's no way that's within context.
I can show you the quote if we go over that debate. It's Owen Benjamin, the Bible Baptist, and Witsit Gets It. Those three going back and forth. That was the one I watched.
Oh, I haven't seen it. I'd love to though.
Yeah, and that was where maybe I misunderstood it, but that's where I heard that comment. And it just made me mad because assuming I understood it correctly, it was like, you're not going to see light in space because there's nothing to reflect the light back to your eyes, and there's nothing to reflect the light back to the film. Like, you're going to be lucky if you pick up any stars at all. And plus, if you've taken a cell phone and held it up at night, I've got those creepy UFO things flying outside of Greg's house every dad blame summer. I can't catch them on my stupid cell phone.
No, you can't see it with your phone.
Yeah.
We saw a UFO last night, man. It was
Did
crazy.
you really?
Yeah.
I believe it. What it looked like?
It was I saw a hard black triangle,
Yeah?
and it had like 7 big dots inside of it.
Holy crap.
It was wild, dude. It was just like slow rolling above the house. There was like 8 of us that saw it.
Holy crap.
It was crazy. Callie spotted it.
Good night. Yeah, you'll have to show me that sometime. That's crazy.
I wish I could.
Yeah. Dude,
There's no
I wish
pictures
I
or
could
anything.
catch those lights outside of Greg's house because they're so blasted regular. It's infuriating, but it's too dark.
I want to get night vision, man.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
You see all that stuff.
Yeah. But that's my point. Like, he was sitting there making this comment about there not being enough stars in the photographs of space or whatever. And it's like,
Yeah, I don't know. That's weird.
You can take pictures of stars from Earth if you've got enough equipment or whatever, but I mean, you have to have light to expose the film, or even digitally, from what I understand. But anyway, go on to your centrifugal force point.
So I was just gonna say, and I think I've talked about this before. Yeah. So the it doesn't make any sense to me that okay. So what you're saying, the gravity comes from. Let me start here. You're saying gravity comes from the core of the Earth, right?
I don't know if it comes from the core of the Earth. I don't know. This is kind of getting into nuanced technical stuff. But basically, material matter is just coming together at central points because of gravity. Like, during the Big Bang, everything's compressed, hot spinning dot blowing around, Big Bang happens. You get these little islands of matter, and they eventually condense into ball-like objects. And so they're basically all just kind of compacting together in the void.
So, what's the force, the driving force behind that?
Well, that's what we call gravity. I mean, basically, the mass of the objects are all collecting together and crunching together, and that force toward that pull towards a central point is what I guess what we call gravity. So,
well, I find that theory to be quite ridiculous. I like what the Bible says about it. That's just me. I don't know. Some
we
people
need to
don't
go
like
back
it.
to that. We spent so long on that.
Oh man. But no, just like if you take, it's just a description I wanted to go over. If you take a tennis ball and dunk it in water, like it's got all that hair on the outside of it, right? So it kind of holds some fluid. If you take this ball and you throw it, where does the water go?
If you throw the ball.
Yeah, and it starts spinning.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So because the water gets kicked off the ball.
Right, that's
Then-
centrifugal force. What you're what they describe as, that what they describe is opposite of that. I don't understand.
No, I understand your question, and that's a good question. I don't exactly know. This is what I was taught in earth science, and I can demonstrate that with the bucket analogy. You throw a bucket over your head.
But that's not the same thing. That's what I was saying.
Yes, I disagree, and here's why. Again, the water is acting like a closed system, and so you're able to move independently in the water while the water itself is being pushed up against the base of the bucket. And so in the globe model, the water is the atmosphere. The atmosphere.
Where's the base of the bucket?
Well, let's just say it would be the central point, gravity. Everything's being pulled towards.
But that's the opposite thing. That's the outside. That's the container. That's not the center.
No, it's not. That's not the container.
The bucket?
Well, yeah, the bucket's the container, but the gravity.
bucket is
You asked
necessary for the
what the
experiment.
bottom of the bucket was. I'm saying gravity's the bottom of the bucket.
That's opposite. That doesn't make sense.
No, I'm not saying centrifugal force creates gravity. I'm saying centrifugal force in conjunction with gravity is what's keeping us on the planet. Like,
So
centrifugal
gravity
force
is
is why we're not necessarily feeling it, and then gravity is why we're on the planet to start with.
so gravity is 10 to the power of centrifugal force. Like it overtakes it.
I don't know if I would go that far. That's getting really technical, and I'd be showing my ignorance if I say
Well, I
yay
mean
or
that's what
nay
you're
on that.
arguing.
I'm saying that the reason you don't feel the Earth spinning is
It's because
because of
gravity is
centrifugal
stronger than the
force.
centrifugal force.
Centrifugal force kind of locks you in place, and you're not going to feel. And it's not just centrifugal. It's centrifugal force, but it's centrifugal force acting on the atmosphere and keeping everything kind of. That's not the right way to put it. Centrifugal force is kind of like keeping the atmosphere kind of connected to the planet, maybe. And then
No, the
gravity is pulling
centrifugal force
everything
would be the
downward.
opposing force. Centrifugal force would be trying to kick everything off
Yeah,
the
but the
planet.
problem with your analogy, though, is we're talking about the void of space. Like, the fact that it's a void of space, like, changes the dynamics of it. Like, the reason the water's getting thrown off the ball is you've got air pushing against the water. That's creating wind resistance. That's throwing stuff off. Do you understand what I'm saying?
So if you had a tennis ball covered in water in a vacuum chamber and spun it remotely, it would not fling off.
Possibly. That would be a really cool experiment to try.
It would. I think it would fling off still.
You could be right. I don't know. But my understanding of it is that the centrifugal force is kind of pressing the gases onto the planet. And the gravity has something to do with that. It's like keeping us stuck there further still. Maybe I'm completely screwing
No.
that up.
Yes, the centrifugal force would be fighting against the gravitational force.
I don't
And
know.
so the gravitational force would have to be way stronger than centrifugal. And they admit that gravity is way less of a force when it comes to reality. It's a way weaker force than electromagnetics.
Gravity's weaker than electromagnetics.
Yep. By a lot.
You could be right. I'm not sure if that's relevant, but you could be right about that.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, like, the centrifugal force, the chances that the gravitational force is stronger than the centrifugal force is kind of low because they admit how weak gravity is. So
Well, I mean,
we're just having thought experiments here. But.
yeah, I don't know how strong or weak the gravitational force is in relation to centrifugal force. When I was a kid, what they taught in earth science was the bucket analogy.
Yeah.
And that worked. Things stayed compressed to the base of the bucket. And from my understanding, gravity is kind of the base of the bucket. Or maybe the earth itself was the base of the bucket. Bottom line is the water stays in place and it doesn't move. And if you're small enough in that closed system, you're not going to feel the forces acting around that system. So if the water, in this case the atmosphere, is staying pressed against the planet because of centrifugal force, you wouldn't feel the spin because in effect the atmosphere is protecting you because the force is traveling around the atmosphere.
Yeah, I find that really silly.
I don't think
know.
it's as silly as the flat earth model, man.
Yeah, that's cool. I think all the models are silly because you shouldn't, unless you get really high, then you don't know where you are.
Okay. Okay.
I ain't never been that high.
You ain't ever been that high.
No.
To find
Like up by the sun,
model
man.
plausible?
Yeah, like to see where you're at. I don't know where I'm at. I never even been on an airplane. Why would I predict a model?
I think you need models in this case because they're a hypothesis. You got to be able to explain all the phenomena.
Yeah, but I don't know.
Yeah, but see, to say that you don't know in the way that you're describing it, that's the empiricism I was complaining about in the closing statement. You're limiting yourself to your own sensory data, but you don't do that in other areas of your life. So why would you do that with this theory? Why not make reasonable assumptions? You assume that your mom and dad conceived you, but you weren't there. You have no sensory data to prove it.
My birth certificate.
Well, that's an inference. That's not empirical. Somebody just wrote that, man.
I don't like the way you're being right now.
I'm sorry. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Faith, Fiction, and Folklore. If you did, we would love it if you would subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Rumble. We can also be found on X, Instagram, and Facebook. And we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Thank you again very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.